Good morning. It's Thursday, November 20th, and I'm going to take that second black Tupelo Stave that I have, and I'm going to try to make it a little heavier weight bow than the last one. I'm making it 62.5 inches long, and I'll show you the dimensions. This is my second black Tupelo bow stave. This one has a little bit of a hump in the riser section, which is okay. And down at the end, I'm making this because I have a short draw, 62.5, and these bumps don't matter because I'm going to add horn tips, either antler tips or horn tips, to the end of this. So this will be taken down. This is not even to be a consideration. And what I did on this one, I followed sort of like the design I put on hickory for a little faster limbs. It's I added a little bit of material. So in other words, it's a 1.5 inch diameter when it's finished at the fade outs, okay, wide. And at the midpoint, I have a little more. It'll be like a little less than 1.25 inches when it's finished. Down here, 7 inches from the end, it'll be, when it's finished, about 1 inch to 5/8, which we could take down to 1/2 inch, okay? So that's kind of the design that I made. I ran a center line with red chalk. Red chalk shows up better on wood than most other chalks, okay? And then I eyeball it too. I look down to make sure that everything looks aligned. I'm going to trim it out, rough trim it today, and see what we come up with. This is the black Tupelo stave that's rough cut. I tried to stay outside the line so we had plenty of room to sand. Okay, now we're going to lay out the side profile. This is the side profile. I drew a line that's 5/8, give or take, plus a 16th. Okay, I added like a 16th onto that 5/8 mark, and I'd rather take it down and have a little more material and take it off sanding it. All right, then once you take off too much, you can't put it back. Because the goal with this one is going to be like a 45-pound bow at my draw line. We have a rough bow blank. It's thicker than we want, 5/8. It's going to wind up taking it down. We're going to floor tiller it as we're taking it down. But it's going to wind up being about 1/2 inch or so thick. Okay, so we have 1/8 inch to take down. And black Tupelo is a softer white wood, but what makes it so special and strong is that it has this crazy interlocking grain that makes it really hard to split. You really have to saw it, okay? So we have that speed design that I described, and it's wider than normal, of course, because you have tool marks. I used a bandsaw, but whatever you use, a rasp, a draw knife, taking down the edges, and then the flat, don't go past the line too vigorously. You could sand it off, rasp it off gently to get it to floor tiller, okay? It's 5/8 and it really don't move, but we're going to get it to move by taking down material. Just quick, I want to show you one more time before I start sanding it. Okay? Taking it down to the lines, getting it to floor tiller. See all the saw marks, how rough it looks? It really looks like a really rough hunk of wood. And now I'm going to start shaping it up. As I got some of the rough tool marks taken off the bottom, I drew another line 1/2 inch. So there's a 1/2 inch line on each side that I have as a guide to go down to. Okay? And at that 1/2 inch mark, it should start the floor tiller pretty good. Okay, after I drew that 1/2 inch line, I got it down to that. And I got the belly, the part that faces your belly. Okay? Fairly smooth. And now I'm going to take down the tapers. I want to show you something though on the end. On the end, you know, the end don't bend. And that's where we're going to have that either horn tip, buffalo horn tip, or deer antlers, whatever I decide to put on. So there was like rough knots and stuff there. I just took it off because I wanted it kind of flat or flush. So when I put this on the fire hardening jig, I can heat it up and get it to conform to the jig without that bumps, because like I said, it's insignificant. You remove that bumps because there's going to be a tip overlay on here. So next I have these kind of speed tip design, goes down to 7 inches, and we're going to redraw some end lines here, and I'm going to taper it down, and I'll show you how I do it, how I sand it on the belt sander. Okay, I do this end first, then from the midsection to that bottom of the 7 inches, and then to the fade outs. I'll do that like 3 sections. So what I'm going to do is from the end mark I have to the 7-inch mark that I have, I'm going to stand on the side that the back part that's away from you faces, and I'm going to sand it down so these lines are even. Okay, and then I'm going to step on this side and do the same on this side for that 7 inches. Once I get that 7-inch tapered the way I want, then this part will overhang, and I will sand from 7 inches down to the midsection marks, which are here, and I will get them nice and cleaned up, and then I'll stand on the other side and do that. Once I get that done, overhanging, then from here, an 1.25 inches to the 1.5 inches, I'm going to sand this down to the line. Okay, and I'll do the same on the other side. So it's a 3-step process to take down for the limb design I want. Just wanted to show you. Do the end, overhang it, do the middle, overhang it, and then the midsection to the fade out. And then the riser, I already touched up the riser a little bit. Okay, then you'll touch up the riser some more and bring it down to those fade out lines. So you know, as I'm taking down material, I'm sighting down. I'm sighting down the bow stave to see what side has to have material taken off. So I can see up here, this side needs material. Down here, I need to take off some here. You know, so you eyeball. You don't just take it and take it all off at once. Baby steps. You take a little material, sight it down, little material, sight it down, see where it's got to go. Okay, just want to show you, it looks a lot different, right? When it's sanded nice, okay? Looks like from a rough piece of scrap wood, starting to look like a bow, right? And I got it floor tilled. Sounds kind of weird. I grab it here by the riser, I put the tip down on the ground, I grab it, and I twist a little, and I feel it bend. And sometimes I close my eyes and twist it a little, and I can focus a little more on how it feels, the pressure. If one's a little stiffer, I take a few more even strokes off. Okay, I don't taper the limbs other than where the fade out is, you know, it goes down. But the most of the limb is a 1/2 inch thick. And once I start, I fire harden it and I start tillering it with the yardstick will tell me the low spots and where I have to remove material to get it to bend. Okay, we're gonna take this next, and I'm gonna put it on the back set jig with heat. Something I don't know if I ever mentioned or not, but right before I put it on that fire hardening jig and heat it up with the heat gun, I take the yardstick and I measure. This is going to be 62.5 inches, so I measure 31.25, and I put a line on the center of the riser, and then I do the same on the other side, and I find that 31.25 mark, and I put a pencil mark. And if the 2 marks are off of here, right in the center, that's where I put the pencil mark. Then what I'll look is, and I'll look at this and I'll say, okay, from the center, where am I going to put the fade out? Where am I going to put a mark for a tillering mark for the fade out? So I happen to look at this, and you can see what I got here. I got 3.5 inches to this fade out mark. And I do the same on all 4 sides. And then what I do is, since this is 5/8 thick, I'll mark a 5/8 line. You can see the line, barely see the line there. Okay? and I do it on all four sides. And I gently try to get it so it's all four sides. The fade outs are the same thickness, okay? Same thickness as the limb. Because once I have that mark, it's going to start tapering up, okay? And it's just a rough taper, all right? Just a rough taper to get it on the fire hardening backset jig, okay? And I'm going to show you how I do that next. So I have a center line on my backset jig, and what I do is I put that bow blank on, and I feel both sides. I put my hand around and I feel to make sure that the wood is even on both sides. And I go down a little bit into the limbs because I want it to lay as in line with the backset jig as possible. The only one I snug down right now is the center one, okay? And I snug it down. I'm going to get the heat gun, and I'm going to heat the inners for about 8 minutes. Usually it takes about 8 minutes. Could take a little longer to get it soft enough where it's hot enough and pliable that I can gently, all right, you never want to force these down or bend them down, where you can gently get the limb to lay down against the backset jig, okay? You see how the limbs are up? Okay, we're going to heat them and slowly turn them, and if they don't go, we stop and we heat it some more until we get it pliable enough to conform to the jig without forcing it. We don't want to develop any cracks. We don't want to stress the wood. We want the wood to conform from the heat to the backset jig. When my old heat gun died, I bought this one, and it comes with a couple of little attachments. And I got to tell you, be very careful. These things take a long time to cool down, and if you touch your skin, you will get a second-degree burn that will take a long time to heal. But the reason why I'm mentioning this before I heat up the limbs, show you how I heat the limbs up, because if you look back on my video where I had made 2 sinew-backed bows that were going to be next year's hunting bows, okay? And the one limb on the one bow just bent a lot more than the top after shooting it in. So it's sinew, so I could add sinew to make it stiffer. But what I did was I put this on, and this enabled me, I'll show you on this type of jig here, this enabled me to, on that sinew-backed bow, is concentrate heat in the center of the limb, all right, to temper the wood. And I had nothing to lose because I was going to heat it up and add new sinew to that limb. So I tempered the limb. And I don't know how long it was, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it was. I did it 15 inner, 15 outer, whatever it came out to. I got a slight color on the limb, okay? So this, when you buy this, you know, don't say I'll never use this and toss it on the side. Someday you might use this, okay? So now what the plan is, I'm going to heat the inners, okay, from the center of the riser out to the mid limb and get it hot enough to clamp it down, okay? And I'm not going to force nothing. It's going to go. If my hand slips, it's going to get heated some more. When you're done, make sure you lay that heat gun somewhere where that tip stays hot for a long time, where it's not going to make anything combust. It'll cool off. I put it on usually on my bandsaw table, or even the wooden sawhorse, you know, so it's away from anything that's going to go on fire. We got to conform to the backset jig, and just a little reminder, you see my other videos, hopefully, and where there's bumps and humps, you're not going to get it to go flush, and that's okay. You don't want it to go flush. You're not going to take any humps or bumps out of the bow blank at all. And even this riser has a little bit of a crown on the back, and you're not going to do nothing with that. You're just snugging it up by hand, and because once it's fire hardened, hopefully it'll take that set without too much spring back, and you'll be able to till this with a yardstick from, you see we have these marks here, right, at the fade outs, and then there's going to be a center mark, and 3/4 from wherever we have the string groove, 3/4 from that string groove, we're going to have another mark. We're going to till this with a yardstick as we bend it down only an inch or so at a time from level. Okay, so you don't have to worry about the humps or the bumps on the back. Just fire harden it. Well, my neighbor's chickens came over to visit. So what do we got there? 3, 6, 7, 8? Got 8 chickens that came over to visit. All right, why don't you guys go next door? Oh, look at that. There's 2 white ones, too. How cool is that? So we got 10 chickens in the yard. Let them go around and eat any bugs that are here. I suggest you go to Shannon Outdoors. Dad Beckham and Keith Shannon, they made a fire hardening DVD, and it's well worth the money. You'll be able to go and try different woods, and it explains the whole process. And you can purchase it on Shannon Outdoors. So I have this Tupelo on the backset jig, and it's been going for a while, and you're going to check the clamps, because as any bow that you're cooking, the moisture is going to come out. And look, you see how it's turning? Okay, you just turn it slightly. Otherwise, the moisture will come out, these limbs will get thinner, and the clamps will fall off if you don't. So, as it's cooking, just make sure they're snug. I'm not forcing this in any way. Just bringing it up. And like I said, if there's any humps or bumps in the back, you're not going to take them out. We're basically making sure that the clamps are snug. We're not trying to take any imperfections or humps out. All right, you can't do it. All right, we're just making sure that it's snug. And now let me explain something else to you. Now that this has been going for a while, once you start the coals, you have it a little higher, and you have to watch the coals. The coals will be smoking. You have to make sure that the wood don't smoke, and it's the coals smoking, because some woods, they combust a little earlier than other woods. Usually wood combust at around 300 degrees, but certain woods, I think sassafras and eastern red cedar, juniper, you got to go up and down with them a little bit. And what I keep handy is a spray bottle, because as you raise it up, you can give the limb a spritz, and once it cools a little, you put it back down. And I'm going to show you how to have the proper temperature. I'm sure you probably see my other videos for fire hardening before, but this is how Keith Shannon came up with it. You take the palm of your hand and you go underneath. And 1, 2, 3, it should be hot enough that you don't want to burn your hand. So you should be able to keep it under there for a 3 count. If you kept it under there and it was 1, 2, too hot, then you have to raise it or knock down coals. So once again, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. This is at the perfect temperature because the coals are caught. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And again, you have to have common sense. Okay? If you don't have common sense, don't do this. You don't want to stick your hand under there and get a 2nd-degree burn. So, yeah, it's go under there with your palm right underneath the limb, and if it's too hot, pull it out, right? But the idea, the goal is you want a 3 count. 1, 2, 3, and then it's too hot, you pull it out. Because you can't measure from the bottom of the limb to the coals, because outside temperature, wind, too many variables, too many things affected. There's no set distance that would ever work, okay? Then the other thing is you can't go over with a thermometer, because as you go over with a thermometer, it'll shoot right through the roof. It'll go sky high, okay? So that, I don't know how we came up with it, but that's the best way to set the temperature and the correct height. Now you see where the riser goes down? I have less coals there. There's less coals there. It's pretty flat, and then it tapers up, okay? So, you know, it's about the same temperature, slopes up, because you want to get that riser section to get cooked too. You want a color. So we're going to show you in about a half hour what it looks like. I'll put it up, and I'll show you there'll be a slight coloring on it. Okay, it's been on the coals for a half an hour, and I'm going to show you what it looks like, and then we're going to knock some ash off. You got a stick. You always have a stick nearby, so you can knock the ash off the coals, and we're going to add more coals to catch. All right, if you leave the ash on, it'll suffocate and won't produce enough heat. So we're going to, from the riser going to the right, we have a very little bit of color, just starting for a half an hour. From the riser going to the left, we have a little bit of color going to the end. That one dark spot was from the heat gun, from me getting it to bend. Well, it was up in the air, knocked off some ash, added more coals, and we're going to let it catch a little before I drop it down. And once again, pay attention to the heat and make sure that it's only the coals smoking and not the wood. And you know, if it starts to smoke, raise it, spritz it, let it cool, and bring it back down to the proper temperature again. As those coals catch, keep checking the temperature. You will have to raise it. It's been a little over an hour. I'm going to show you what the bottom looks like. From the riser going to the right, we got some nice color going on. Starting to get a little color. From the riser going to the left, we're starting to get some color going on. While it's up in the air, I'm going to move the clamps over 1 inch. Even though I believe the fire hardening goes around the clamps for aesthetics, there'll be white spots under the clamps, so we're going to move them over 1 inch. And then we're going to knock some ash off these coals. The coals are still good. We're going to knock a little ash off, and we're going to let it cook. See if you can see a little bit of smoke coming out of the limb. Okay, so we're going to raise it up a little bit. And we're going to give it a spritz. Okay, and we're going to let it dry and stay hanging up for a little bit. Then we're going to cook it some more. Constantly check these clamps to make sure that they're snug. These turned quite a bit. And this time of year, it's almost sunset. You know, it's got about another 45 minutes for sunset or whatever. The temperature really drops. You know, you feel it, especially you notice if you're in the tree stand or out in the woods, just as it starts to change. And the other time I notice a cold too is right before the sun rises too. I just noticed this, I don't know what it is, but I get this chill right before the sun rises. So this is going. We got to let it go for about another 15 minutes and take it up, pick it up, and I'll show you what it looks like. Got an hour and a half going here, maybe a little more. I'm going to show you what the bottom looks like. I just put a couple of coals in between. Show you the bottom. From the riser going to the right, we got some nice color. From the riser going to the left, we got some nice color, and let it down for another half hour. Since we added some coals, just make sure that the coals are smoking and not the wood. I did have to lift it up and give it a little spritz underneath on the right limb. But it's all good now. I got to cook it again. It's been cooking for 2.5 hours. I'm going to put it on the table and show you what it looks like. Okay, this is what it looks like after 2.5 hours. We're going to let it cool down. I'm going to remove the clamps once it's cool, and I'm going to show you the most important thing to do after you fire harden a bow blank. Remove the clamps. It conform to the jig pretty good. Got about 1/8 of an inch spring back on both sides, which is okay. Check out the back set. Okay, beautiful, right? A lot of back set. This is the most important thing to do now with your fire hardened bow blank that you got. Take a wet rag, dripping wet rag. Look at the water. You see the water? You're going to hydrate this and hydrate it. You're going to do this a few times over a couple-hour period. And then you're going to put it somewhere for a day or so, or 2 days, to let the moisture go through the wood, okay? Because you don't want to, I'll never forget this in the conversation I had with Keith Shannon. He says, as good as he is at tillering, you can't tiller a potato chip, all right? So what we got here is we got a bow that was cooked and dry, and we got to put moisture in it. Fire hardening does a couple of things. It makes it stronger, it makes it a little more hydrophobic. It makes it a little more water resistant. Does not make it waterproof. You could still, you're still going to have a little moisture, but you're going to have a lot less than you normally would. Okay, it really helps out. It makes a really fast, strong bow. All right. So this is it. Hydrate it, hydrate it, hydrate it. Let me show you how nice. Okay, this is 2.5 hours. All right. Here's the back. Look at that pristine back. And that's from, you can watch my steaming videos. I steam the bark and cambium off. You peel it off like a banana, and it leaves this incredibly beautiful back on any kind of wood, any kind of white wood. You can't, obviously on Osage and black locust, you got to go down the sap rings with a draw knife. You can't steam that off. You got to work it off, all right? But for all the whitewoods, this is what you do, and it's beautiful, okay? Look at the fire hardening. Okay, even though I moved the clamps, we got some white spots, but that's okay. When we tiller it, finally tiller it, some of this is going to lighten up. Okay, and then I'm going to use, like just on the other one that you saw in my video, I'm going to use the dark brown leather dye and the warm satin polyurethane, and it'll blend in really nice. So the next time you see this, it's either going to have buffalo horn tips or deer antler tips and string grooves, and we're going to have a tillering video on this one, and we're going to try and get this one to a nice hunting weight. Okay, so that's the end of this video for today. Thanks for watching. Every day you get up is a great day. Make the best of it.